That's it. There's a couple of really good websites. Yep. Okay. Just when it's done and when you premiere it or send it live, which is going to be what, Sunday? Yep. And then I can put it up on all my platforms and get you some viewers. All right. Yeah. I do a podcast for just a regular sports show, kind of like PUSKA and Pucks was. This is something called the Sports Hub. I also do a political podcast for our local member of provincial parliament. He's a New Democrat, so as you Yankees would call him, socialist. I also do a podcast for the hockey team, and I'm finalizing podcast on fraud prevention, which has become a huge issue. And I'm also finalizing some other stuff. I had hoped to do some more work with the indoor football, but the IFL I think has gotten too big and too grandioso, so that's out of the question. Well, I thought we were talking about doing something just audio only, but they want video and they want something powered, and they were saying, "Oh, well, we're going to be on Yahoo. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing that." It's like, holy shit! So, you know, nice people. They've done a great job with that league. They've taken it to another level after almost swooping it out of under the curve. Did the Amarillo team in Amarillo, is that done now? Have they folded shop again, or are they still back? Yep. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know Kenny was helping them out for a little while.
It always takes me a second to get booted up. I always feel, okay, there we go. All right. Well, here we are. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. I always bring down the music just a little bit. Got to have a little mood music to get you going. But it is Sunday, January 11th, 2026. It's the second show of the new year. I'm Tyler Anderson. The internet knows me as Tyler Liger. And I'm here with kind of the man, the myth, the legend, at least in the Amarillo sports scene. You know, I'm with Denis J. PUSKA. I'm you know, it's cool to have you here. I've been wanting to talk hockey and indoor football with somebody for a long time. And I got my wish a few weeks ago when you reached out. So it's good to have you on, Denis.
I'm really happy to be here, Tyler, and hello, Amarillo, and hello, America, as some people like to call it. We're up here in Canada digging out of, we had about 3 feet, almost 3 feet of snow in about 45 days here, so it was pretty bad.
It's
been pretty bad.
Oh my goodness, yeah. You know, like I was up in Iowa over Christmas and there was hardly any snow, but the weather still sucked. So like it was Christmas Eve and Christmas was just like, it was all fog.
Mm-hmm.
So couldn't really get around a whole lot. And then we had like a blizzard, but really it didn't dump a whole lot of snow. It was just like a dusting and that was it. And I'm like, you know, like, and I'm a Midwesterner. I'm like, I'm used to having like feet of snow. And then when I was in Rapid City last year, Like the snow would just come down like nuts, but it'd be gone. It would be gone within like the next day, like the next few days, because of the Chinook winds. So yeah,
I remember.
snow.
Yeah, I remember a year in Amarillo with the Bulls. The storm came in, and we were at a hockey game on a Saturday night after the game was over, hanging out in the corral or the glass room.
Mm-hmm.
And our boss, Rick Matchett, came in and he said to me and Dennis Williams, and we were there, he said, you guys have got to leave tonight or tomorrow night. And we said, why? There's a big storm coming, 1.5 feet of snow expected. And sure enough, we got on the road, we left, and we stayed in Abilene for about one night, got up the next morning, went all the way down to Corpus Christi, and ended up staying the whole week down south. And I called my late wife, Marianne, and I said, so how bad's the storm? She says, we got 1.5 feet and everything is shut down.
Yeah.
And I went, oh boy, couldn't do anything. So by the time we got back, a lot of the snow had been melted, been piled up, and a lot of it had been gone because it warmed up so quick. So that was my one relation of saying, oh yeah, Amarillo gets snow. And that was probably the biggest snowstorm that we had been a part of in my 14 years of living in the Panhandle.
Yeah, it's here today and it's gone tomorrow. You might as well enjoy it. But everything shuts down, and I think it's not so much the snowfall; it's how the road crews handled the snowfall. They just push everything in the middle, and then well, God forbid if you want to do any turning lanes, if you want to like go turn into something, it's like, well, good luck. You're gonna climb over a snowdrift to do it.
That's true.
That's what the Midwest and Canada does best, is we know how to move snow a little bit better. But there's advantages to Texas too. But
there you go. I like the snow. The no snow was my biggest advantage of living when I was living in Amarillo and getting to go down to Corpus Christi 2-3 times a year and enjoying the beach and some warmer weather.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And oh man, and sometimes like you just have 60 to 70 degree weather. We just had that right when I got back, and I was like, this is nice. I don't miss like now, like if you go to like 30 or 20 degrees, there's no wind like up in the Midwest. Like it's not windy like it is in the Panhandle, so it's been really nice. But so, okay, let's formally introduce you, because I know I'm going to bring you on for future shows. So let's, in a nutshell, just nutshell as best you can, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know it's going to be an epic, but
yeah. I was the voice of Amarillo hockey for 14 years total, and it was rather spread out. I moved to Amarillo in 2001 to become the voice of the Rattlers. The Rattlers went through one season. They then ceased to exist, and local ownership brought the Amarillo Gorillas to town. The Amarillo Gorillas was part of their franchise for 3 years, then was let go unceremoniously and whatever happened there. And then I went away and lived elsewhere. And then by chance, I got a phone call or a message on an email saying that the Amarillo Bulls of the North American Hockey League were forming and they needed help. And my name got bannered about as it normally does in the Panhandle. And they brought me back as quick as anything. And for 10 years, I was running the Amarillo Bulls media relations, broadcasting, community relations, and all that. So it was 14 years, about 750 games, somewhere like that, maybe more. A lot of love, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in the Panhandle.
Oh yeah, and so many. There was a lot of good years with the Bulls, and there were some rough years. I would say on the media side, because I mean we worked together when I was when I was doing stuff with the Bulls, and I was like, man, Dennis is one of the best. Like, you get these really good press releases, knowing where all these guys are going, or you do a game preview, and it could be against like Corpus Christi, it could be against I remember Wichita Falls, Witchy. Lone Star is still around. I mean, there's New Mexico teams that popped up here and there. Oh my gosh, yeah, like Shreveport was kind of a late addition. Yeah, I just remember all those teams in the circuit, and it's kind of like after being away, I'm like, man, I have to get reacquainted with all the, with all these, with the circuit again.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's changed, but it hasn't changed too much. I mean, there's still hockey being played, although it is it's still kind of weird that I go, like, because I went to a Wranglers game not too long ago, and I still enjoy seeing and hearing Chris, but it's so weird not hearing "Let's Go Bulls" and like the drum line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss that.
Well, when I was back about 3 years ago for the ceremony, it was really different being back. But Amarillo Hockey, Austin Sutter and his group have done a phenomenal job. The Wranglers are doing amazing work in the community. Now they've got the NA3 team called the West Texas Bulls and West Texas Wranglers, I guess. I'm sorry. And they're doing amazingly well too across the street in that beautiful arena that I got a chance to get a tour of with Austin, and looks great. And now they just announced the North American Prospects Hockey League, the NAPHL, which I think is a wonderful thing to help grow hockey in the Panhandle. And if you would have said hockey would be where it is right now in the Panhandle 20 years ago when the Rattlers were getting going, people thought you'd be crazy. But to have its own ice rink, to have the growth of it right now, the sport in Amarillo right now is truly amazing, and the future is so bright right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because yeah, like to me, like when I first came down to Amarillo, and that was about 2007, it was just the Gorillas that were around, and maybe they were kind of trying to get like some youth hockey going. Not like how it is, like like even in Iowa, I still felt like that was kind of a hockey desert. Like you have to go down to Des Moines or Ames to go catch hockey. And I remember going down to Des Moines Buccaneers games or in the Iowa Wild, and then I went over to Rapid City. In Rapid City, so get this, you'll get a kick out of this. So like I got to know the voice of the Rush, which is Corey Barbarian. Shout out to Corey. I name dropped you, and he was like, I've heard of him. So hockey's a very small world.
Yeah.
And everybody knows everybody.
Well, it's funny about the Rapid City Rush. Their first head coach was former Amarillo Gorillas head coach Joe Ferris.
Okay.
And he got that franchise going along with former members of the Bossier Shreveport Mudbugs of the Central Hockey League. And they got that franchise going up north in Rapid City and really turned it into one of the premier franchises. Of course, the arena was built by the Central Hockey League and that parent group. And that's as you say, it's a gorgeous arena. I've seen it on TV on Flow Hockey a number of times, and it looks great. But yeah, Rapid City, of course, had a number of former Amarillo players go up there and hang out and do well. And now it's a proud member of the ECHL, who's back in service again after being off because of a little bit of a work stoppage, but they got it figured out. But yeah, it's amazing how small the hockey world is, Tyler. You hear people here and there that know of you or know of what's going on. You tell them where you've been. It's like, oh yeah, I know that, and it's fun to see where it's gone.
Right. It's crazy to like figure out like just everybody knows everybody at least in some capacity. So like my 1 year I was there, I had the privilege to cover the Rush, and their hockey arenas was fantastic, and they just did more improvements to it over the off season. And the monument, which was like the Rushmore like Plaza or whatever it was called, there's a reason why I have disclaimers that I'm not exactly the expert I used to be, but it's a really cool complex because it's almost like the Civic Center, but it has like a hockey arena. They built on a brand new like 10,000 seat arena. Now, if you talk to Scott Birdie, I had some really good conversations with him, and I did a story over with him Really cool feature story how he overcame like a brain tumor, and that was an interesting saga in itself. And he was like, they kind of messed up with that brand new arena because they didn't put an ice plant in there so we could play in there. And I was like, I agree. They could eat up some dates, like, because you look at Wichita, for instance, and they play an Intrust Bank Arena, and that's a beautiful place. And I covered that for indoor football. Oh my gosh, it feels like a million years ago. But there are some really nice arenas. Like they're almost like AHL or even NHL caliber arenas that some of these ECHL teams are playing in.
Well, it is. I mean, you look at it, the Colorado Eagles are one of the great buildings that sell out for so many years.
Oh, what a great program,
you've got the one in Rio Rancho. That arena's been around forever. The Allen Americans, Laredo. I remember taking the numerous trips down to Laredo to the Laredo Entertainment Center. That was always a fun place to go into. Rio Grande Valley down in Hidalgo. I think it's State Farm Arena now. I'm not sure the name of it. It goes through a lot of naming right changes. Of course, American Bank Center of Corpus Christi Arena. I'm not sure what it's called, Hillard's Place or something now. And it was a fun place to go into. Such a gorgeous building, and you're right downtown. But yeah, you're right. There are some great buildings, and I was so happy to get a chance to call some great games right across the country in some incredible places.
Yeah. And I always kid with Corey because I was like, the Monument Ice Arena, this is great. Like, and then even if you go into the Amarillo Civic Center, like they've done enough to where it's like, hey, like you don't feel like you're playing juniors. You don't feel like you're playing in a rickety barn. Because I remember before the Des Moines Buccaneers moved into their kind of new place, and then they're building a new arena attached to the old Merle Hay Mall. They played in, the old Madhouse at Hickman. They played at the Buccaneer Ice Arena or the Metro Sports Ice Arena or whatever. And that place, that would get cold. You'd have to bundle up just to, go catch a hockey game. But my goodness, those games were a blast. But they were rickety old barns. They were like kind of, you had to navigate a little bit, and it was kind of cramped. But those were kind of the best. But nowadays, like, even like, Corpus Christi and Shreveport, and I mean, even to an extent, Amarillo, and like, I think Lone Star has a really cool facility as well. So
yeah, I love Lone
Yeah.
Star. I really like the way they have put that together. I remember doing a game in Indianapolis, going up to Indianapolis to the game at the, we had two arenas that weekend. We had to go to their current facility, which was remade, the old I think it's called the Coliseum now.
Yeah.
At the fairgrounds, and we did a few games out there, including some playoff games. And then they put us downtown at the big rink, the beautiful rink, because Manute Bol was signed to a 1 day or weekend contract to play for the Indianapolis Ice.
I remember that.
And I remember trying to get involved, and they said, you want to meet Manute Bol? And I said, I'd love to. And I remember walking in, and this guy, of course, Manute Bol's 7 foot, 7'1", something like that.
He was tall.
Sitting there, and just a phenomenal guy to spend some time with. He actually hung out in the penalty box for most of the game, had a great time. He was such a gracious guy with his time, and they were doing some work to help him with his, I believe it was famine relief that they were helping out with at the time as well. And such a neat event to be in that building. That building had maybe 5,000-6,000 in there at the time. The arena holds 20, but it had about 5,000-6,000. It was full for Manute Bol because everybody wanted an autograph, and that was pretty cool. Or going to the CHL All-Star game in the old arena in Albuquerque, and having Shawn Michaels there. You're a wrestling fan. Shawn Michaels showed up to be the special guest and to drop the puck. I was calling the game along with a bunch of different guys, and we had a lot of fun. Of course, they had Shawn Michaels there having a blast, and we had a chance to hang out a little bit and do that. So it's you love the old barns. We have a bunch of them here in Northern Ontario, but the The new arenas are nice. The Amarillo Civic Center, one of my favorite places to be in. Used to love going to Odessa. I used to love Lubbock. Lubbock was a neat place to get into. Those are some neat places. I didn't mind going into San Angelo. It was a pain to get upstairs because you had to do a lot of climbing up the stairs to the top. But San Angelo was a lot of fun. Awesome people. Laredo was interesting to go into because you're right on the border. And it was always fun because you had to literally, once you went to the game and worked there in Laredo, you had to pass through immigration on the way out of town. So that was always fun. The bus would stop and you'd have to go through your little spiel before getting released and get ready to go. Rio Grande Valley was a lot of fun. And so many different places, that have gone over the years. The old Corpus Christi Memorial Coliseum, back in the day, seated 3,300 people. 3,300 people were there for hockey. And one of the first games I've been to, there was about 4 of us on the broadcast line, the media line. We're almost sitting on each other's laps because it was so tight in there.
Oh my goodness.
I knew it was like my 5th game or 3rd game ever in Amarillo. And they said, we're going to Corpus. I went, okay, this is the life. But I got into the building and literally we're shoehorned in there. It's like you may have had to pull out some of the oil and grease us up to squeak us in there because it was that tight. But we had a lot of fun, and we had a whole bunch of different announcers. We could hear each other broadcast. I think Greg Rajan, who was a former writer with the Corpus Christi paper, I could hear him tell stories 2 people down, and I remember having to tell him, hey, can you drop your voice a little bit? They can hear all about your life history through my microphone, and he learned how to calm down. But yeah, those are some great old buildings that we used to be in.
Oh yeah. Oh, I can't help but think of the mezzanine in the Civic Center and how many times were it's not only I'm covering the game, but there's Kale who tags along with me, and then every now and then we get Lee Baker. And Lee Baker, you get the 3 of us together. It's controlled chaos.
We had such a great group back then. Yourself, Kale, Lee Baker, when Andy Justice was doing sports. We had the great crew at Channel 10. Everyone all got together, and they used to come up and hang out for a while and shoot their video, get their stuff, and then run downstairs and get their post-game comments. And then in the old days, we used to have the corporate boxes up top where they would have those alcoholic beverages upstairs, and you would have to run the gauntlet of getting around all the people who are upstairs having a cocktail and watching the game. So that was always a lot of fun. That was back in the heyday of the Rattlers and the Gorillas. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, we had a great media group up there, and I just love the confines of the blue box, the blue shed, however you want to call it. It was the Perch, as they've called it now, and always a fun place to be in. And I do miss it. When I was inducted, I sat in there for a little bit, and I was almost to tears a couple of times just because of the names and the memories that I've called. It's such an amazing, amazing place.
So kind of working from that, and this is where you can go in storyteller mode, is what are some of your favorite moments? And this could be anywhere. This could be in Amarillo. This could be where you're at. What are some moments that have stood out to you?
Well, in Amarillo hockey history, I would have to say some of my first games with the Amarillo Rattlers. My first game in Amarillo. Actually, I have to go back. I was hired in 2001, 5 days before 9/11. So that was the hardest stretch of my life doing that. However, a year and a half before that, I was actually interviewed for the Amarillo Rattlers position. I'm not sure the lady's name that interviewed me. They wanted to bring me down, but because I was not American, I wasn't legal to work in the States, they couldn't bring me in. So fast forward, my first wife, who was American, said, why don't we move to the States? So we did. And all of a sudden, we just got my immigration information together and got my green card. And she goes, and Amarillo, Texas, Grant Buckborough, who was working at the time, called me and said, you want to come work for the Rattlers? And I'm like, okay. We had to look on a map where Amarillo was. My wife and I drove from Cleveland, Ohio to Wichita, Kansas the first day. hung out there. I actually went as far as St. Louis the first day, then Wichita, Kansas the second day. Spent the night in Wichita, Kansas, and hung out with friends, and then drove the back way in, not down the other way. We went the backside in, so we went through Guyman and Liberal and all the way through there and right down 27. So that was an eye-opener for a kid from Kapuskasing, Ontario, who didn't really know how big Texas was. So fast forward, we get into the city and start looking around. I drive the wrong way down a one-way street.
Oh no.
That was the east side. That was all by where the old Holiday Inn was on I-40 in Grand, I believe, or I-40 in Ross. Yeah. I drove down the one-way street by accident. I didn't know it was one way, and I was like, oh my God. So that was interesting, my first experience. So yeah, a kid from Northern Ontario in the big city of Texas going, what am I doing here? And then fast forward to that, 5 days later, or a week later, 9/11 hit. And that was one of the most incredible days and weeks that I probably will remember for the rest of my life. And it was really only my third or fourth day at work. And to see this unfold, to drive in, like going, what's going on? And then walking into the office, everybody's almost at tears and couldn't believe what happened. And that was one of the first experiences that you just kind of makes you understand what's going on in reality. And I said, I'm a kid from a small town of about 8,000 people to go down to Amarillo, Texas, in the big city of the United States. That really was an eye opener for me and what happened, and kind of grew me a little bit more from there. And, we had some other great experiences, of course, getting to announce the Amarillo Gorillas as that new name after the Rattlers, went down. And we had no hockey for about 45 days, and we were having a tough time. My late wife, Marianne Bedard Puska, who many people will know, she, along with some of the owners of Hockey Sports of Amarillo, got together to get Amarillo hockey going. And that was the reason why they're able to get it going. And with help of the Central Hockey League, with a guy who people know, Mr. Brad Treliving, who is now the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He was part of the spearhead to get the Amarillo hockey back to where it was today. And of course, our local ownership group did a phenomenal job. And I remember sitting in the old Amarillo, one of the old buildings it's on downtown, but I can't think of the name of it. We're in the basement with the local ownership group picking out names. And we went through every name. We got it down to 5. And when someone said, hey, we're going to be called the Amarillo Gorillas, you could have pushed me over with a feather. Oh. I couldn't believe it. I was like, are you kidding me? I said, no. So they called up, they took a break. They called up Brad Treliving with the Central Hockey League and said, we have a name. I'm going to be called the Amarillo Gorillas. And he said, really? He said, I don't know about that. He said, let me think about it. Within 25 minutes or half an hour, he called back. Yep, we're going for it. So nobody knew except for one person, and the word got out to Lubbock. And we went live on this is one of my favorite TV moments. We went live on all 3 TV stations at 6 o'clock and unveiled the Amarillo Gorillas logo. And I think people were kind of like going, like the cat that looks out the window of the car. You're going, what is that? And the Gorillas took off and became one of the most successful franchises at the beginning, the first couple of years, because merchandise flew out and people had to be a part of it. And it was something pretty special.
Yeah. Okay. And then
so that's my early days, Tyler, of hockey in the Texas Panhandle. And it was so fun to be a part of it, being a part of those playoff runs and part of the Gorillas and growing the game there, meeting guys like, that I became really good friends with, the David Ratres, who's doing phenomenal work and business in the community, Brian Pellerin, who was an assistant coach at the time, Todd St. Louis, who everybody knows, and very impressive young man. Got to know Brad Housley. Now, of course, I got to know Austin Sutter really well, and Jason Chafe, and many others. And it was part of what made it together. Derek Hans, another one, Eric Anderson, so many incredible people that have been part of hockey in the Texas Panhandle that I'm not just saying are just colleagues, but are good friends, because they mean that much to me. Right.
And it's kind of interesting how it's kind of evolved, because, after the CHL went away and the Gorillas had to fold, and then instantly it was just like, okay, we got the Amarillo Bulls now. And then the Bulls had really great years, especially when they started out. they were fantastic.
Yeah.
Robertson Cup run, if I remember correctly. And then it was kind of quiet, like a little bit, like, and then I remember one of my first years, like kind of the bottom fell out. Amazing goalie, just didn't have the personnel, and then they brought in Rocky Russo, who's, I think he's still with the Lincoln Stars, and
yes, he is.
Oh yeah, and then he kind of got him back to where they were when they started off, and that was the team, like, I really was like, you know, I really latched on to. Like, I was like, okay, all right, like this was fun. Like, I got to see hockey when it was really,
and it's
when it was rough, and then I got to see hockey when it got really fun again. So.
And it was funny about when the Bulls were introduced, a lot of people didn't understand the junior hockey model because they're so used to the way minor pro hockey is. You can have you can hang out with the boys, you're going to see them, at the bars and whatever else. You're going to see them around town. However, with junior hockey, these are young men under the age of 21, and they're going for scholarships, and they're going to be in the community, but they're also maybe at schools, or they may be at that. And they play hockey, and they at the hockey rink maybe literally all day learning their craft. And we built this program literally from the ground up. The success of the first year, when you can go to, what did we go to? 3 straight Robertson Cup championships, tournaments, and then to actually win the final in 2013, and that epic game against the Wenatchee Wild was phenomenal. Who would have thought, the run we had? I think we were 49-7-7, something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Our run was unbelievable. I still have goosebumps every time I listen to that tape. And Dennis Williams was the head coach. Rocky Russo was the assistant. Dennis Williams' claim to fame, he went on from Amarillo. He moved on to Bloomington. Then he went up to Everett Silvertips of the Central Hockey League, of the Canadian Junior Hockey League, rather, with Major Junior Hockey in Everett, Washington. He took that program to stardom. He got recognized by Canadian Hockey as being a world-class coach. Coached Team Canada juniors to their last gold medal at the World Junior Hockey Championships in 2023. Canada lost, and they won the bronze medal in Minnesota that just completed. Yeah, the last one for Canada to win gold, Dennis Williams.
Oh, wow.
Part of that team. He was the last coach to get Canada a gold medal. That's a claim to fame. I was joking about him with it around Christmas time, and that's pretty wild. But you have that success and the run we had, and the players going to the NHL, and where we took them, and the college commitments. I think we were over 200 or so college commitments, or 300. It was, the numbers were crazy. And watching these players grow, we helped to build a house for Habitat for Humanity. That was incredible to be a part of that. The work we did in the community, going to the schools, going to the hospitals, doing what we do, that's what we did, and that's how we built this program to where we were. And yeah, we had wonderful ownership in Amarillo with the Bulls, great front office work with people like Rick Matchett, of course, and we had great backing of so many different people, and it was such a fun group to be a part of for 10 years.
Yeah, and I can't praise Rick Matchett enough. Now, he went down to Odessa to be with the Jackalopes, and then I need to see what he's up to these days, but my goodness, I can't have enough praise for Rick, because I enjoyed whenever I talk to Rick, because, like, I remember we do like the weekly media day, we come in around noon on a Tuesday. I think it was a Tuesday, and it would be, like, it'd be all of us there, and then, Rick just comes strolling up. He's just, he's rocking his suit, and he's being like, oh yeah, we have these promotions going on, we have this, make sure you point this out when you're putting in your game, preview, or you're putting in your game story. And then also the promotions were really fun too. Like, the Wranglers don't have this anymore, but I still have really fond memories of because it was like a Geico commercial that really got popular, and it was the pig that weed all the way home, and then they put up the pig in the rafters, and then whenever the Bulls would score, they would always play that, and Kale and I always got a kick out of it. And even though it had nothing to do with a cow or nothing to do with bulls, like it was just a meme, and it had developed its own life when the bulls were they were in existence. So it was that's probably one of my favorite memories.
Hey, I got
what's that?
I've got one of those piggies. I got one of those piggies actually from we had it as a they were bobblehead. So I got one of them, which was actually pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
But yeah, Rick Matchett's still a very close personal friend of mine. He's working for a radio station in Odessa.
Okay.
He is a consummate salesman. He was so fun to work with. I learned so much in sales from him, and sold in Cumulus for a number of years, as well as other media in Amarillo. And he's still one of my closest friends, and I still talk to him almost on a daily basis without saying hi and see what's going on, and bug him about Texas Tech. And, you know, we won't get into that conversation after their demise on New Year's Day.
Oh my gosh.
Or on New Year's Day, which I'm sure people in Texas are still pretty upset about. But you know what? Rick was there, and he was there for my family, me and my family, when we needed people there the most. And of course, Austin Sutter and I I've become very close, and helping, watching them grow the Wranglers into what they're doing today. And it's some great memories of the people. That's the best part, and being part of these booster clubs, watching these booster clubs, or watching these fans that have come in over the years, and how they've grown and how their kids have grown up. And, that's what makes what we do so special, and makes part of the community. Being part of Amarillo was seeing those people and seeing the familiar faces at every home game, or sitting in the corral enjoying something after the game, or being part of our jersey auctions that would raise $20,000 for a local charity, and they were thrilled with the money. Or the specialty jerseys we come up with every year. And I used to have a running thing with Austin Sutter and a lot of people. I said, if we're going to do these jerseys, I get first right of refusal, because I got to make sure I can see them while I'm calling the games. And there were a couple of them that I could not see the back of the number. So that was like a blur. There's a couple of camel jerseys with the gorillas that used to drive me bonkers, but they sold. We did these jerseys one year. They were for New Year's Eve, and they were tuxedo jerseys. They didn't turn out all that great in terms of the replicas. However, they sold on New Year's Eve at an auction like wildfire. And we couldn't believe it. People were so excited to have them. But, those are some memories that you just, and things you just can't make up, working hockey and working in the industry that I did for as long as I did. Yeah.
And I think that stretches into indoor football, which creates a great segue into your experience with the indoor football league. But I remember I was interning with the Amarillo Venom, and I would have a heck of a time because I used to spot for stats, and you couldn't see some of the uniform numbers. They were so outlandish. Probably outlandish is probably the best word for it, but they would be so hard to read, and I would be like, I really have to squint really hard. And there's no such thing as a bad seat in the Civic Center in the Cal Farley Coliseum. So you can see just about anything from anywhere. But man, some of those uniforms, some of those jersey numbers, so hard to spot. And even the Venom was kind of guilty of that. It was I remember they played Lexfa, and Lexfa had the Mexican Arena League that they actually played outside. It looked like they were playing in somebody's backyard, but they had easily readable numbers. I was like, okay, we can read these guys, but those guys would have 4 names to them. They would list themselves they would have 2 first names, and then they would have a middle name, then they have 2 more last names. I was like, just number 8. number 16. I
love my days working indoor football. I was had the pleasure of getting to know Michael Alshouse, the director of communication at the time, who has since went on to become commissioner for a few years. And the Indoor Football League was in Amarillo. And that's where I started to follow it and developed a podcast for the IFL, the first ever podcast they've ever had. And we did that for 10 years. And we had a great relationship with the league. We were up north, and the last year I covered the IFL, I went up to the IFL finals up in Sioux Falls, and that was maybe the most fun experience, was getting to Sioux Falls and that beautiful arena. If you ever go up there, what a gorgeous building that is. And I covered the IFL final. It was Sioux Falls against Arizona, I think it was, and it was a blast. I had a great time. The place was nearly full. They loved their football in Sioux Falls, and the IFL was such a great community to be a part of. A lot of wonderful people. It's going strong. It's going gangbusters now. They're doing great things. You're going to see them on TV and during the summer. And I give them praise. They're doing such a good job.
Right. And I mean, it's interesting because, you know, Sioux Falls, they're still trying to bring the Storm back. I think what happened with the Storm is they ran into they were kind of in a disagreement with the Denny Sanford Premier Center, which great arena. I didn't go cover games in there, but I had a sports reporter that worked for me in Rapid City. He went over and he covered state basketball over there, and he had a blast. And but there was the Storm dealt with attendance drops just because they weren't winning every single game anymore. They had more competition from Arizona. They had competition from, it wasn't so much Las Vegas because Las Vegas didn't come in later, but Iowa. Although Iowa's kind of been middle of the road, but it's more so Arizona and Frisco was really good for a little bit. They weren't winning as many games, and then of course the attendance started to shrink a little bit, and the arena kind of got cold feet, which I was like, but what else do you got going on in the summer other than Storm games? And the Storm had been with Sioux Falls forever. You know, you just couldn't work something out, and for the commissioner, who's still based out of Sioux Falls, it's like, man, I don't even have a team in my home market. You know, it's nuts, but yeah, I remember those years when Sioux Falls was just dominant. They would just win just about every single game. You didn't want to run into the Storm.
Their broadcaster was tremendous. Such a great guy that was part of the game. And his name escapes me right now. I can picture him, but I can't think of his name. But he'd been there forever. I think what Todd Tryon did was he took all the staff from the Sioux Falls Storm, and he kind of, just because he knew how great they were, and he just brought them with him over to the IFL front office. And I think for the most part, the IFL front office is run, I think, out of Sioux Falls, and they've done a great job, and Todd's done a great job. He's a great ambassador for the sport and for the league, and longtime businessman. And they've got a good thing going right now.
Yeah, they do. I mean, especially with the championship game they just had between Green Bay and Vegas. That was an epic game. The league needed a championship game like that. Now, is it? Now, I always argue, because I was around when I was a kid when they had the original Barnstormers, in the original Arena Football League. And it's kind of sad to see the Arena Football League kind of tumble the way they had over the last few decades. But I feel the Indoor Football League has kind of taken the mantle of being kind of the place to be if you want to play indoor football, or and now there's so much now with there's the NFL, there's the Canadian Football League, there is the UFL now, and before the UFL it was just, okay, all right, I have the IFL, we have the IFL, and then, okay, well, if you're really good, you could get spotted by the Canadian Football League, and then maybe you have an outside chance of from there maybe jumping to the NFL. But kudos to those guys that they bust their tails to keep living the dream, man, because You don't get paid very much, but
Yep.
a lot of those guys do it for the love of the game.
Well, and a few of the guys got seen and played some meaningful games in the Canadian Football League. I actually interviewed a couple of the guys that did some time in the CFL. They loved it. They said they loved their time up north. They're thankful for the IFL, what it was able to do. And yeah, you're right. The AFL, arena football, original arena football, they were a product of their own demise because they got too big, too fast, too much, and then they just dropped quick. They couldn't keep it up, and then they went. Now they're trying to come back as what? First they tried as AFL, didn't go very well. Now they're trying AF1, and who knows how long that's going to last. Of course, Champions Indoor Football has become very successful in the Midwest and in the South. They've done a nice job. With their group. You've got so many different leagues right now, but I think you're right. I think the IFL is kind of the premier destination of the IFL, of indoor football, and then you kind of work from there. And indoor football is fun to watch. I remember going to games and seeing games live for the first time and having a couple of cocktails and just being there as a fan, and I went, wow, I enjoyed this this building. And it was I enjoy the fans and I enjoy the product on the field. I was in Huntsville, Alabama for a couple of years working AF2, and the Huntsville team were part of it, and they had a team there and they did very, very well. They were drawing 70,000 fans a game. The place was packed. It was rocking, and they loved their football. I was part of it for part of a year and did some selling with it and did some front office stuff, and I really enjoyed the work that they did, and they had a lot of fun.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think that was the Tennessee Valley Vipers. That might be it. I think that's
Tennessee Valley Vipers.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were great.
That's them, played out of Von Braun Center. I love them. I love their people. Such a wonderful group to work with. I really got to know them really well. My 1 year in Amarillo working for the Havoc and the Southern Professional Hockey League, and also did work with the Tennessee Valley Vipers, and they were fun to be a part of. People loved their arena football product, and they really enjoyed with what it did.
Yeah. And that was the same way in Quad City, because there was a time where the Barnstormers were not around, and the only game in town was on the eastern side of the state, completely other side of Iowa, in Quad City, because Jim Foster, the founder of arena football, owned the Quad City Steamwheelers, and they were the team that went on, they went on the undefeated run, and then they were back-to-back Arena Cup champions. I did catch one of their games against Tulsa, and the place was packed. I remember just having a corner seat, and we had to sit up a little. Dad and I had to sit up a little high, but that was an experience. I hardly remember the game because it was back in 2001. But that was during that really amazing run from the Steamwheelers, and But I mean, I was hooked even before then with the Barnstormers and the barn, and that place was rickety. It was built in the 50s. It's not even really used for much anymore other than conventions. But those Barnstormer games, they were something else. It was like a religious experience, and the barn would fill up, and they'd bring in teams from all over. I remember catching it was like a conference championship game. It was the semifinal before you went to the Arena Bowl, and they had the Orlando Predators in that building, and the Predators blew the doors off the Barnstormers, but the Barnstormers from about 1995 to about 2000, they were good. They were really fun to watch. And that was post Kurt Warner, when Aaron Garcia was coaching, or not coaching. He was quarterbacking, and I ended up seeing him again because the Barnstormers went back to the Arena Football League, and Garcia was actually quarterbacking for the San Antonio Talons. And that was about 2014. And he was still playing arena ball.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, for somebody like that to like experience like the heyday and then the heights that the league achieved and then the fall that the league went through. I mean, my goodness, all the stories that probably or Aaron Garcia could tell. But oh my goodness. Yeah. I would say for the are you still hearing me pretty good? Okay. Still hearing me okay? Okay.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of
some hiccups,
malfunction with the yeah.
Yep. A few hiccups, but yeah, just I feel like indoor football has become so regionalized because yes, you have the indoor football league, which is kind of your premier destination. Anybody who's anybody would want to go to the IFL, and the IFL is picking up teams left and right. Now there's not as much movement as there used to be anymore because the Massachusetts Pirates, which were basically essentially on an island, now they moved down to Orlando, and it's so weird to not have an indoor football team in Orlando and it's not called the Predators. So very brave new world. There's been a lot of changes over the years, but
you know what? Indoor football's still got its place, still growing and doing some amazing things, giving those players an opportunity to do well, and when it's done right, when the product is done right, they do well with corporate, they do well with tickets, their fans, they have good solid local ownership. Indoor football is successful, and there's no doubt in my mind. You see it over the years. Same thing with hockey. You have good solid local ownership or good solid ownership, minor pro hockey, junior hockey, indoor football can all grow and be successful, and that's really part of it.
Right. Yeah. And it's such a delicate formula too. You have to do things, you have to be involved. You have to be out and about. But you also got to be able to sell tickets at the end of the day and get people in your building, and then have a great game day experience to where people can be like, oh yeah, like I'm excited for this team. And I think what scares people a lot in some markets is kind of the fly by night nature. Now it's not so much in, minor league hockey, because you have some structure there, but it's more so the indoor football side. And it might have to take like another few years for it to kind of maybe settle down and find its groove. But I mean, it's on its way.
And the IFL's done that right now. The IFL has done that by settling down. Yep.
Yeah. Oh.
And I really like what they've done in terms of settling down the markets. The Arizona teams continue to do well in some of the other markets, and you still got the big cities in there. Sometimes they try to go too big with some sports like indoor football, and you go into some of the bigger cities, then you've got to really expand your audience. You got to expand your staff, and you can't do it on shoestring. If you're going to go into bigger cities, you have to have proper staff. You have to have the proper budget, and you got to understand that, because your costs for arena fees and everything else, for rental and everything else is gonna go up because you're in bigger markets.
Right. I think that's why like indoor football, when it's in mid-sized markets or it's been established for a while, then it can thrive. Like Des Moines had a history of indoor football. You look at Sioux City and you look at Omaha, which the Bandits and the Beef they're still doing really well to this day. And I knew one of the executives, he bounced around a little bit. At the time he was with Dodge City. And then I think he bounced around, and then he ended up in Omaha. And have to remember where he's at now because it's been a minute since I talked to Ricky. But yeah, like but those cities have been, and those organizations have been so well run, and they've been run for such a long time that, you know, it's like they'll make it work, and it's a great way to fill up dates in the summer for an arena, you know. So because I think a few years ago I went to the Bandits, and it was like I think it was a semifinal game of all things too. It was a playoff game, and of course they played the Beef, and that was when the Beef were really good. They were really good, and I think they won I don't know if it was the Champions Indoor Football. It might have been the NAL when they all moved over to the NAL, but yeah, that was the game day experience was still really good, and it was still cheap enough to where it's still inexpensive enough to where you could take a friend or you could take a family member. Because I think that's what I did for one of my cousin's birthdays. I was like, all right, we're gonna go up and watch an indoor football game in Sioux City, Iowa. But great arena, by the way. That Sioux City's arena is really nice, and then the one in Ralston is really nice too. So, but as far as like your time with the Indoor Football League, who is somebody that really sticks out to you? Like, probably for, I would say for the right reasons. You know, we don't want to slam dunk on anybody too bad, but what are some more memorable people that you've met during your time in podcasting with the IFL?
Well, I'd have to go. There's several coaches. Sioux Falls coach who's been around forever, and again, his name escapes me, but he was around forever. He was such a neat guy to spend some time with. The coaches were great. The players were outstanding. Dixie Wooten, who's still involved in the IFL. I don't know where he's coaching now, but Dixie Wooten was one of those guys who, when I needed an interview, needed to talk about the playoffs or talk about how the team's doing, Dixie was there, and he was always had a smile on his face, great story to tell, very blessed and grateful to be doing what he's doing, and just a fun guy to catch up with. He was always among my favorite coaches to interview through over the years. And of course, you had Julian Reese in Amarillo, who'd been around for such a long time. He was great to spend some time with, but so many neat people that were always like, yeah, what do you want to talk about today? And I remember one of the Damian Lillard, his brother was a basketball player, and talking about, you know, the Lillard family and their rise to the NBA and his work in football, and how to pay the bills in the summer he went to work for the arena itself, selling and doing work for them inside. So that was part of what he liked to do.
Okay. Yeah, and I always heard great things about Dixie Wooten as well. Like, he was just a classy guy. And then, you know, Julian's the same way. Like, it's so hard to believe that when I ran around, like, I used to jump on they used to let me on the team bus from Amarillo down to Allen. And this is when they had the Texas Revolution and the CIF at the time. And I remember making a trip down probably with the first game of the season, and then during the playoffs. And I think the second time around they had Deuce and they had Trey. And now to see Deuce really make waves in high school football with what he's done at Paul Duro, I'm just like, man, I used to watch over you and like make sure you were out of trouble. Like, and he's still getting in trouble, but man, he's a fine young man today. Really big fan of what they've done. And then you may take Julian out of coaching, but you can't take coaching out of Julian Reese. That I remember meeting up with him for an interview this past summer to talk about, you know, his impact on Deuce and vice versa. there was a kid that was, trying to kick field goals, and Julian was coaching him while balancing the interview and talking, and bringing Deuce in and teaching Deuce how to conduct yourself with the media. And so like the juggler, he was so good at what he did. And I still enjoyed Julian to this day. And just a lot of good memories with the Venom, even though they weren't really with the IFL. But I always remember what always stuck out to me, and I haven't really brought this up until like now, was I remember I was doing stuff for the Tuckers. I was doing stuff for Stephanie. And I remember passing by her desk because I had to put something on her desk. And there was an application from the IFL. I don't think she ever acted on it, but I think the IFL invite was always on the table.
Yeah. Yeah, and they did that, I think, because they knew that Amarillo was a great market, and that if they could get Amarillo market, they'd have another team along I-40 within travel distance and striking distance. And, when you're putting leagues together, you want strategic travel partners and people that are going to make a difference. And also when they know that the Amarillo fans come out and support the product, because the Venom fans were very solid, were very terrific at getting out and supporting their team, and they love their football.
Yeah. So that makes me really interested to see how the Amarillo Warbirds will do. I have seen them out and about, and they've already made some staff changes, but they've kind of kept some continuity. I'm planning to go kind of catch them because I think I ran across one of their players that they signed, one of their initial signings, and he saw me taking pictures. He was like, "Hey, can you take pictures like of us this year?" And I was like, I could, like, I don't know when like they do the credentials. But I reached out to the owner and I was like, "Hey, like, I will," it's like, "Hey, just let me know when that goes up and I'll fill it out, whatever you need me to do." So, I'll be interested to see how they do this year. I know indoor soccer is kind of starting to catch on a little bit, just because Amarillo has a little bit of a soccer culture. That's a different animal all to itself too. Yeah. I mean, but anywho, I'm sure people are wondering, what you've been up to as of late. So we'll talk about that. I know you went back up to the Great White North, and you're still doing your thing. You're still doing podcasts and radio shows. You sound like you've been as busy as ever.
Yeah, I keep going. As I said, I work for a radio station. You can find me at mycaphurstnow.com. I host a morning show from 6 a.m. Eastern to 10 a.m. Eastern. I do that. Plus, I also cover news the rest of the day. So I enjoy doing that. That's the reason why I moved back to here in Kapuskasing, my hometown. Before I started in the industry 45 years ago, that same radio station. So 5 years ago to today, I'm working for them today. Basically, I'm kind of like the guy for the station, and we have a great content, great group, and a great ownership group with the Vista Radio team, and they do such a great job. So I do that. I'm calling hockey still. I'm on Flow Hockey with the Hearst Lumberjacks of the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League. I've been doing that now for 4 or 5, maybe 5 seasons now. Okay. And enjoy doing that. I was over at the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League Showcase in Sudbury. I was lead voice for that, kind of like the North American Hockey League Top Prospects, which I did my final year in Amarillo. This was a very similar type of event, so was working on that. And I guess, yes, I do all my podcasts. I've still got my website, PUSKAmediaservices.com. I did it in the memory of my late wife, Marianne Bedard Puska. and the website's going strong. It looks great, so people will have to check it out and check out on one of the podcasts.
Cool. That's awesome. I think another thing I want to ask, since you've seen a lot of hockey, what's the biggest difference between hockey when, you know, let's just give a good starting point. When you started broadcasting to today, like, what are some of the biggest changes you notice with the game?
Well, the biggest thing now, of course, is equipment. That's the big thing. Equipment's getting better. They're protecting the kids more. The game is a lot more skilled. The old days of fighting and bang, crash, boom, and hitting hard and all that's out of the game. Skill and speed has become a finesse part of the game. And a big thing, too, nowadays is cost. Hockey is becoming very expensive. It doesn't matter, Tyler, what country you live in, whether it's Canada or the United States. Hockey is slowly starting to price itself out of a family's pocketbook. So that's one thing. The numbers continue to drop in terms of the number of kids playing. That's because that's very expensive. And they've got to work on that, making hockey more affordable and doing the best they can there, because in the past, hockey was the thing to do. It didn't matter what you needed. You got it done. Now, with the cost of everything going up, hockey is becoming maybe not so much, and kids are looking at other things to do in so many different avenues. But hockey has really changed in that regard. It's become more of a skilled game. It's become, kids still play it at a high level. Now they know that they can go on to places. They can go on and get a scholarship. They can go on and do different things. And I think now that they're seeing more pathways with the development of social media and with the development of everything else, I think that really bodes well for the future of hockey, just giving kids more opportunities to go different places and do, what they want to do.
Right. And I don't want to say it's a niche sport, because, it's growing. Still it's Canada's game. But it's growing all over the United States. It's still a big deal over in Europe. There's so many avenues to where you can go and play professional hockey. I've talked to several players that, they don't have to stay in the States, or they don't have to stay in Canada. They could go, if you're Canadian, you can go south. If you're an American, you can go over to Europe and go play. I got to know Garrett Klotz really well, the sheriff, and he's kind of one of those last tough guys that, the Rush pick up, and he's a fan favorite. He gets in fights. I remember talking to him, and I was like, Garrett, when's the last time you lost a fight? And he was like, to be honest with you, I don't know. But he got drafted by the Flyers, and then he ended up going to Europe for a while, and then he ended up going to Rapid City, and has been a staple there since. And just now the opportunities probably weren't as much back in his day, but nowadays, yeah, there's so many leagues, there's so many places that you can go to. So many avenues where you can go and get noticed. And just about every hockey game that I know of is some way or another broadcasted either through radio or nowadays streaming, because people love. We're visual creatures, so
yeah,
I feel like that's changed the game a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can watch the games on pay-per-view wherever you are, and the quality is there. It looks great. It sounds great. And you can take it on your phone. You can take it on your iPad. You can go anywhere you want with it. And that's great, because the kids get visible and players get visible that way. And teams do too. And, that's where you sell these jerseys and hats and everything else to people that, I live in Kapuskasing, Ontario, but I'm a fan of the Corpus Christi Ice Rays or something like that. That's amazing. We had a player from Hearst who actually had a tryout earlier this year with the Ice Rays in the North American Hockey League, and
wow,
enjoyed his time down there. Said it was crazy being by palm trees in the ocean, but he said, you know what, couldn't stay just because he had gotten injured. but he said he enjoyed his time down in South Texas and thought it was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. And and there's several communities that are starting to blossom into hockey cities. Rapid City being one of them, I think, and this will segue into another question here, Dennis. One of the best hockey teams I had seen, at least like that wasn't really, junior hockey or professional ranks. There was a program out in Rapid City called the Rushmore Thunder, and really good. It was coached by a former Rush player. His name escapes me at the moment, but great guy. And his kid was one of the star players, along with another player who's going to go on and play baseball for the University of Nebraska. And I kidded Wyatt Reeder that I was like, I don't know, like I think you can go on and you can have a good hockey career, but he loved baseball even more, which was kind of that was very interesting to know. But they ran roughshod through the state of South Dakota. And then when they went to the national stage, they only dropped one game and they ended up being national champions. Like that entire year, they only lost one contest. They would beat teams by, I would say, at least 10 goals. They were stupidly good. So what are some of the best teams that you've seen or you've covered in your time?
Well, in Amarillo, the Bulls team of 2013 was probably one of the best teams I've been a part of. To have the success they had on the ice when they won it all was absolutely incredible. The run we went on from start to finish, that team was fun to be a part of, to get fitted with rings, to call a national championship, to bring that to Amarillo. That was pretty good. I'll go back to my days and with the Amarillo Gorillas. There were back-to-back years with Joe Ferris, former Rapid City Rush head coach. He was Amarillo Gorillas head coach. And we had two good back-to-back years. We lost in the semifinals of the Central Hockey League to the Laredo Bucks. And the Laredo Bucks were coached by former National Hockey League player Terry Bruskowski. And he had some tremendous talent back in the day, and they were a hard team to beat. They were legit. And we lost game 6 of that series down in Laredo. Laredo for the finals took on Beaujeu Shreveport. The phantom goal is still being talked about to this day, when the puck looked like it went in at the side of the net, not in the directional way. Oh. And they had 8,000 people watch the game inside the arena, and about another 3,000 people outside watching the game on the big screen outside in Laredo. And they have season ticket holders from Mexico. Wow. They have about 300 season ticket holders from Mexico that would come in just to watch hockey. They loved it. So, those were the days. And then the year I left Amarillo, the year we lost the Robertson Cup final in the semifinals to, I believe it was to Scott Langer and his team up from South Dakota. We lost in, I think it was Aberdeen. Lost to that group. And he put on a great, the Aberdeen, and Aberdeen's a great team. Yeah, we lost in that series. I think we lost in game 3. We had a remarkable run that year. We thought, the way they were going, it looked like it was going to be another one of those runs right to a national title, and we came close and won the South and didn't do it the conventional way. A lot of things happened along the way, but the team made it to the Robertson Cup, and it was great to go back to that event again and be a part of it. And it was done a little differently than it was done in the past, but very well done. Great to get up to Minnesota again for hockey. But those are some of the memories of some of the great teams in terms of Amarillo hockey history that I remember being a part of, and just some good people and some great years of hockey.
There's a lot of good memories. In dealing with a lot of hockey people over the years, hockey people are always wonderful. And they appreciate everybody. I think, let's see, I'm just trying to think of, because I have some hockey memories. My first hockey game, it was in one of the weirdest places. It was in Onalaska, Wisconsin, and it was an exhibition game between the Green Bay Gamblers, who were the home team, and they had the St. Paul Vulcans. And I remember asking my uncle who took me to the game, and I was like, what on earth is a Vulcan? And I think his brother came with as well, and his brother chimed in, well, it's somebody you don't want to meet. And the USHL was a very interesting league because I grew up catching highlights of the Des Moines Buccaneers. I was too far to the east to really know about the Sioux City Musketeers, even though and it was interesting because Des Moines would go east and not go really to the west. But yeah, I remember that was a high scoring game as well. It was like a 6-4 game. And one of the most vivid memories I have is we sat up close to the glass and it seemed like almost every other 30 seconds, somebody was getting shoved up against the glass, which was, as a little kid, that's trying to see what's going on, see somebody go up against the glass. It makes you jump back just a little bit. But yeah, hockey's a wonderful sport. It was a bummer that I never had hockey that was relatively close to me until I moved down to Amarillo. And then, I swear I had about 5 different kinds of Amarillo Gorilla sweaters. Because they would change jerseys just about every year, or they'd change a different style. Or
there
whatever.
You go.
Yeah. I never went to go see the NHL, but I always hear from friends or contacts that and we lived in Iowa, so and I think they were in Minnesota, so they would catch a Wild game, and they would say that some of the Wild games would get would get really fun. So, but I don't know. When I went to the Iowa Wild, I was kind of it's the AHL, okay. But I find it's the lower leagues that you have the most fun at, because it doesn't beat you up in the wallet too bad, and you always have really just you have a really fun time, and you find people that are really those hardcore fans that they love hockey just as much as you are, or they're just wanting a cheap night out and have a few drinks and have some fun. So but let me ask you this one. So I know we got going on an indoor football a little bit. I could tell some differences, but what do you feel like is the main differences between indoor football when you started working on the podcast, you started working on things, to indoor football now? I feel the IFL's gotten bigger, and then I feel like it's gotten more regionalized.
They've actually, yeah. But I think one of the things the IFL has done, Tyler, is I think the IFL has started to understand their business model a little bit more, and who's good and where their business needs to be and where their teams need to be. And you can't be moving franchises around. You've got to have your solid fan bases and your solid teams and develop that. That's one thing the IFL's really tried to work on, is do that. They've worked on, maybe developing the players a little bit more. And, the IFL is supposed to be the place that the guys can go. If they can't make it into the NFL anymore, they'll go play indoor football for a couple of years. And maybe there's that opportunity to go up to Canada and get seen and play in the Canadian Football League for a few years. There's that. There's that correlation or that thing in there. But, the IFL's got a great product. I love what they do. They try to stay true to real football as much as possible. They don't have the big metal screens like they have in arena football. And it's actually quite done. I really, really like their product, and I really think it does a great job. And I really am hoping that their future is really bright with what's going on with the league.
I hope so too, just because the league nowadays, with it broadcasting more games, like now I was a little spoiled because they were on YouTube for a few years, and that's how I could keep up with the IFL. And all the broadcasts were just a little different. It wasn't really standardized, but it was still really fun to, like, you know, on one YouTube stream, there's the Barnstormers, and another you can go all the way across the country and see how the Bay Area Panthers are doing. You know, either they're playing like the Northern Arizona Wranglers or they're playing the San Diego Strike Force. You know, I think it's very interesting that, you know, but it's still so regionalized. But I do feel like the IFL is going in a really good direction. The subscription-based thing, I mean, I think about the subscription-based thing that they had for last year, they were just trying to see, like, hey, is this going to work? Is this going to bring people in? Is this going to bring in revenue? And then I like that the IFL is willing to try new things. And then if they're like, hey, this isn't really working, like, let's bounce over, let's try something else. Like, I like that they moved over to Yahoo and then they put some stuff on, I think it's FanDuel, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they're going to use FanDuel this year to stream.
Yeah. So I do think that's, I do think that it's, once they figure out that, hey, this is going to work, they'll stick with it. And I think it will, just because, I don't think it's going to be paywalled. So I think the biggest thing is just getting accessibility and getting newer, you know, younger fans into, you know, like, into convincing their parents, hey, let's go to an indoor football game where it's like, you know, the final score is like 78-74, you know. Although nowadays it's not as high scoring, but still very compelling. Yeah. And, you know, but yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on indoor football. My thoughts on hockey. I know you want to come back down to Amarillo sometime soon. I know you can't make promises, but yeah, like, but you know, I definitely look forward to seeing you when you come back, for sure. But I think one thing I wanted to kind of bring up, which I was like, you know what, let's that made me think of you, was when I went to the Wranglers game and I was like I looked up at the booth. I was like, okay, all right, you know, is there anything that changed upstairs? And what stuck out to me, what was really cool, was that they had the booth named after you. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And I had to mention you. I was like, oh, it's been a minute since I've been back, but really awesome to see your name. Like, now you're immortalized. Now the booth can't be named anything else. So how cool is that?
Wow. That was that whole experience going home, as I like to call it, going home to Amarillo, was a surreal experience. It happened after the pandemic, and we were trying to get to go before the pandemic, but then of course it hit and everything kind of went sideways. So finally got down to Amarillo, and took a little bit to get down there, had delayed in flights and got into there, and it was great to kind of wander around. I hadn't been back, it was probably 5 years or 6 years since I had been back to Amarillo. So enough had changed. And to be part of that ceremony, to have Austin Sutter and his son walk on the ice with me, and to actually stand on the ice. I never get to stand on the ice for games. I've only done that a handful of times. And to stand on the ice and actually talk to the fans and drop the puck was very surreal, very emotional. I got very emotional that day. Lee Baker came over and interviewed me and talked to me a little bit, and some other guys. And it was interesting. It was really an emotional night. And I remember when they put the sign up, I was just like, I can't get over this. the neat thing about it, my mom got a chance to watch it, and she was very emotional as well. She couldn't believe it, and we were all kind of pretty touched by the whole experience. And my late wife would be probably looking down that day and just amazed, because she was with me the whole way in Amarillo. We went through a lot of good times, but a lot of bad times in that city over the years. Of course, we lost her in Amarillo, but she was part of why hockey continued. If you look at with a local ownership group, my wife, my late wife, Marianne Bedard, she helped dig the financial situation, figured it all out, so Amarillo hockey could rise again, and why we have hockey today. And with her help and with the help of the local ownership group at the time, they were able to get things figured out. And she always didn't like me telling the story about it, because she's very modest, but she's an astute business lady. And when it came to everything that happened, it was a pretty special moment. But that whole experience being back in Amarillo was fun, being at the game. The first night I got a chance to watch the game, relax and have a cocktail and wander around a bit, go sit with the fans. I had to be more professional the second night when I got there. I even wore cowboy boots. Back for the event, I bought a pair of cowboy boots before I left Amarillo several years ago. And I said, I'm going to wear cowboy boots and a suit to the ceremony. My feet got so hurt from wearing cowboy boots, I had to take them off. I had to go buy a pair of dress shoes in Amarillo while I was there. Ended up only wearing the cowboy. I think I wore the cowboy boots the night of the ceremony because my feet were hurting that much. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I was done. I did Amarillo right by wearing cowboy boots and having a great night. And it was, as I said, it's one of those experiences that I will never forget. And actually, I printed off your photo that you took. It's on my wall of the photo that you sent on X of the booth, and I look at it off and on, and when I still see it, when I'm trying to fill in and watch the Amarillo Wrangler games on their website, I watch some of the games and I look up to see the sign, and still gives me chills and makes me smile to this date.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think whenever you see your name up on something, you almost have to pinch yourself. You have to be like, is this really happening? Like, okay. I think we got a few.
That's how I was.
Yeah. I feel like my last question before we call her good. And of course, welcome to come back anytime. Doors always open. Where do you feel like kind of both hockey and indoor football will go? Like, I mean, if you had to gaze into a crystal ball, you had to be like, okay, all right, this is where hockey's going to go. This is where indoor football is going to go. What would be like, where do you see those two sports going?
Well, for hockey, in general, hockey's on a new high. Of course, we're getting ready for the Olympic Games in Italy. If they ever get the arena going, the NHL's in a great spot. Hockey continues to grow and do well. One of the things I've been impressed by is, again, I mentioned it earlier about Amarillo hockey and the strides they've made, adding the North American Prospects Hockey League to the roster, getting the NA3HL franchise, the work that Austin Southerner's group have done in Amarillo have been simply amazing. So hockey in Texas continues to do well. The Stars are going to continue to drive that bus, and that's going to be important. I'd love to see a team down in Houston again. Don't hold your breath on it. Don't know if they can sustain it. That might be a possibility as well. Rumblings on it early on to go from there. Indoor football, I don't know. I think we'll see how the IFL makes it way through this year with the new deal with FanDuel, with the work Yahoo and different things like that. They've got a great brain trust that's trying to write them in the right direction. So I think that's going to help. They've got to get some stability with their ownership, and I think that's what the team owner, and I think that's happening right now. We see all these different alphabet soup leagues pop up all over the place, but you still have Champions Indoor Football, and you still have the Indoor Football League, and I think those are going to be the two that are going to kind of still be around when all the dominoes fall. Champions has got a great product with, of course, the Omaha Beef and Company. The Indoor Football League's got its franchises. Todd Tryon and his group. I love the work they've done and the future they're headed. So I think indoor football is going to be fun, and I'm looking forward again to seeing them get going with FanDuel. I think that's going to give FanDuel a little bit of push there, and or Fox, whatever they used to be called, Bally's for a while.
Yeah.
And they're that group of Fox stations. So we'll see how things move in the forward. Hockey's on a great thing. I think the Amarillo Wranglers have got an incredible product. Hockey continues to be so very important in Amarillo. And I support it to this date. Everybody's asked me, are you ever going to write your book about Amarillo hockey? I've come close to wanting to write it, but unfortunately some things have happened along the way that have stepped aside, and people have said I should write my own story. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if people want to spend $20 and read about me and how my trials and tribulations are over the years in Amarillo. But maybe that's one of those, what do you call them, audible stories where I can tell it and people can download it and hear that. I don't know, but Amarillo's got such a rich hockey history. We've celebrated 25 years. I think now we're over 30, and I just love where it's headed, and I wish everybody involved the best of luck, and more people from Kids Amarillo have been the biggest stage, and that was what they wanted to do. Let the kids stay home, let them not have to travel anywhere, and that's what's happening. The Cutter Daniels with West Texas and so many other kids like that. That is the thing that makes me smile the most, to see kids that you saw little wee kids growing up. Now they're playing the North American 3HL, and now they're getting a chance at the North American League. Gunnar Vic's another one I'm thinking of right now as well. And that's the kind of stuff that you feel proud of, that you were part of the legacy of Amarillo hockey, and watching it grow, and now watching these kids get a chance. And then as that moves forward, that's what you want to see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The biggest thing is just develop your local talent. And they're getting there. I mean, who knows? You've seen it with Arizona. You've seen it with Southern California of all places. Develop their own hockey cultures and then end up having your own prospects come from there. So it's not beyond me to see the next great hockey player come from the Texas Panhandle of all places.
There you go. That's what's going to happen. You watch, and that'll be the day that I'll be celebrating. Hoping I'm around to see it. And that'll be the day I'll be celebrating and probably have a huge smile on my face and probably a tear in my eye.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it'd only be right. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for, joining. Like I said, door's always open. Just hit me up. Or shoot me an email. We got each other's emails now. But
ever need me on again, buddy?
But before we go,
I'd love to jump on with you again anytime.
Absolutely. Heck yeah. I'd love to talk more indoor football, and I'm always down to talk more hockey. My hockey stuff is limited, but I do have really positive experiences with hockey, and it's always so fun. Before we rock and roll, let me go over the schedule just real quick. I get CJ Holiday next week. He's kind of a guy that keeps tabs on other YouTubers. I'll get him on for next week. And then I get Sports Circle Pro Hangover. We're kind of doing a recap of Collision Course. We'll have Lee Excel. I got Draven Reeves locked in. He's going to make a second appearance. And we may have some extra people come in and give their own perspectives from the ongoing Scored Circle Pro Civil War going on right now. Tune in January 25th, day before my birthday. And then I get the Zombie Killer Rex read in on February 1st, and then the season finale, Kale Steed, one of my best friends. the founder of Press Pass Sports. You don't want to miss that one. That one's on Super Bowl Sunday, February 8th. I'll also be running around with the Extra Point with Ryan Justice as well. I will give more updates to that as well, since you'll get a kick out of this before we go, Dennis, is I was kind of, when I moved back, Ryan, who does like a NFL themed podcast, weekly thing on Wednesdays, he was like, do you want to come on and talk football with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, so, I mean, I don't keep up with the NFL as much as I used to, but now that it's in playoff mode, now I'm like, okay, all right, now I know what's all going on, but I'm just hanging on by the seat of my pants while Ryan kind of leads me on. So, but cool deal. It's been season 1, episode 22 of the Unfiltered podcast. Don't forget to like, if you like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, it's free, hit the bell for notifications, even though I pretty much set the schedule, but yeah, don't miss a beat. So I'm Tyler Anderson. The internet knows me as Tyler Liger. I had Dennis, and Dennis is fantastic. Do you have any parting words? Maybe be like, hey, check me out here. I know you plugged in your podcast, your website. Is there anything else we're missing?
PUSKAmediaservices.com is my website. You can get my podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including social media, Google Play, Amazon, Apple, and all things like that. I'm also at mycaphurstnow.com, and I'm also still on Flow Hockey with the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League. So you can find me just about everywhere and anywhere, and always up to talk sports.
Awesome. All right. Well, until next time, take care of yourselves. Have a great beginning of the week. So, all right. Next week, have a good one.
Sorry, I couldn't. The internet was just cutting in and out so bad, and that's why it has a hard time for a while. Like right now, yeah. Like I don't know if that's my fault, your fault, or what it is, but yeah. Awesome. Yeah, whenever you want me to come on again, I'm there. For sure. Just we're I don't do as much of the I don't do as much of the IFL anymore. As I said, I was hoping to get some work done with them, but unfortunately it didn't pan out the way I wanted it to, but that's just the way it is. All right, man. Thank you. If anything else from me, give me a holler. You can send me the link, email me the link, and I'll post it on my social media things, okay? All right, buddy. Thank you. We'll see you later. Okay. Yep. Bye-bye.